Sustained Oknia. Welcome to Khmer Voices, where we shine a spotlight on the achievements of the Cambodian diaspora around the world. I'm your host, Vani, aka Vanny. Mampong Khmer Teng Oknia, I have got a delightful conversation for you today, albeit with some minor audio issues, but I'd say 99% of it was perfectly clear. You'll definitely want to tune in. Now, I've mentioned a couple times here how much I love this person's work. I have none other than Sotheara Lim on the show, the man behind the awe-inspiring, joy-focused Instagram account. Khmer Renaissance may have influencer status, but Sotheara rarely ever shows his face there, much less share details of his life. So that's why I'm excited to invite you into our conversation in the next hour. Get to know the man behind it all. We talk about his upbringing in Long Beach, California, the people who inspired him, the struggles early in his professional life, how he got into marketing, and of course, we dive into the why behind Khmer Renaissance. As you may gather from his Instagram account, he is on a mission to uplift the Khmer community through education and opportunities. So naturally, we talked about what he dreams of for the Cambodian community. If you know me, I get excited talking about dreams and possibilities. And I hope you enjoy getting to know the man behind Khmer Renaissance.
This was like, well, thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me.
So, Sotheara, you said that you've listened to my podcast a few times, and I'm honored that you do. I love your work. We're going to be talking about Khmer Renaissance, but specifically, I wanted to cover your career trajectory in marketing as a director now. So it's quite an impressive role, and you made a post recently about wanting the Khmer diaspora and Cambodians in general to achieve a certain career level and how that will help the community as a whole. So let's touch on that. Before we do, could you give us your backstory? Like when did your family arrive in the US? And I know that you were born in Long Beach, so cover your time growing up then as well.
Yeah, sure. So my mom, they came to America in the early 80s. My dad, he is from Battambang, and my mom is from Takao. But they both ended up in Phnom Penh. They both ended up in Phnom Penh, people started migrating away from the countryside to go towards the city center because of the Khmer Rouge.
Mm.
But they didn't meet, they met each other over here in America. So, they met in Long Beach. My mom went to Millikan High School, and my dad, he was a little older. He didn't go to high school here in America. And my mom actually had me when she was in high school. So she was actually a teenage mom. So my mom was very young. People think that she's like my older sister, but she's actually my mom.
It's the Asian genes, right?
Yeah, the Asian genes, right. So yeah, my mom had me very young. So I grew up very poor. I grew up very poor. I grew up very like in public housing. I grew up on the welfare system. Both parents, they're both illiterate in both languages of Khmer and English because they're part of that generation of like their schooling was disrupted during the Khmer because of the Khmer Rouge, and they were too old, gain any meaningful education here in America. So they were they're part of that. They're part of that that weird transition generation. So so I grew up very poor on welfare in the public housing system, but I kind of grew up on two sides of like the Cambodian class system. On my dad's side, his family is like traditionally farmers, so they're from the countryside. My mom would consider him that gro. Her family is from the Lon Nol government. So her great uncle was part of parliament. Is actually part of the coup that overthrew Sihanouk. And they were like politically, they were a political family in Cambodia from Dachau, and they had a lot of political influence. My family on my mom's side, they're very proud of that. I have feelings about that because on one hand, it's kind of like, it's an interesting piece of history of my family to know that they were, they were part of like, the Lone Nol government. But on the other hand, the Lone Nol government is the reason why we have part of a big reason why we have the Khmer Rouge and
Mhm.
why see it Khmer Rouge side. So we have to be mindful of that, and we have to like acknowledge, you know, these histories in order to like, move forward.
And that's a
So
sorry to interrupt you. That was a reason, one of the reasons why you started Khmer Renaissance too, based on your conversation with Chad of Khmer Tree podcast. I understand. That's what I
correct,
gathered. Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So that, and rest in peace, Bong Chad. He's he's a great person in the
Hmm.
community. So I just want to kind of so he's done a lot for the community, and his impact is going to be everlasting.
Absolutely.
But yes, you are correct. That's like one of the reasons because like given my family history, I'm like, okay, I feel like an obligation to sort of like write the things that my family took part in. Even though they weren't Irish soldiers and they weren't like actually committing executions and all that, their actions have led to their actions and the corruption within the Lone Nol government was led to those conditions. So like a lot of my like I felt like I kind of like growing up, I kind of like towed between like both sides of like the class disparity in Khmer society, and I think as being Khmer, you're kind of like it's a very classist society. You know what I mean? Because we draw influences from like Indian caste system, so like that God and then that me and then that Tom and all that, right? So I kind of like grew up straddling the middle of that. When I moved with my dad's family, I felt like I felt one way, but then when I was with my mom's family growing up, I felt another way. You know what I mean? But also like I always felt like I was never really accepted because the fact that we were poor. While the rest of my other family members and my cousins, they were like they own businesses like jewelry shops and all this other stuff.
Okay.
But now that I'm older and
Did
I'm kind
did your mom's parents accept your dad as her husband?
of
What's that? Sorry,
nah,
I missed that.
I'm sorry. They did not accept him. No. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that was clear to you even as a young child.
yeah, I think my mom kind of like put it like my mom and my dad like they don't like they have these conversations. I think it's kind of like it's a good thing because it made me very conscious of like the just how my society operates.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like kind of helps shape sort of like some of my values that I have today. So
Yeah, I sometimes read your posts and I'm like, how is he's so well aware of these things? I didn't start questioning it until I was in my 40s, right? The Lenon government too, their involvement and your family's connection to that. When did you understand that that necessarily wasn't a good thing?
I think once I started doing some more reading, I can't remember. I've always sort of like growing up. I've always been instilled like about my identity and my history because like my dad was like I credit my dad and I credit both my mom. My dad there I would consider my dad like a Khmer scholar. He knows everything and what it means to be Khmer in terms of like history and culture and all that. So he taught me very young. And then my mom, she knew a lot about like etiquette, how to like carry yourself, like the proper words to use with the folks, the levels of like some bath and all that. Um so for me growing up, I've always sort of like leaned towards like learning about who I am and my history and all that. And I think when I was there's a book that I read when I was in middle school called Cambodia by Henry Kam, which outlines the entire events in detail of things that were happening at Khmer Rouge. And I think that was probably when I started like learning. Oh, like yeah, the Lone Nol government, they're not, even though they were fighting against the Khmer Rouge, they're not the good guys either. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
Against themselves, and they've also they overthrew a government without any plan, and they destabilized their own country. Um, so I think to answer your question, sort of like maybe I guess in middle school, if I were to
Mhm.
give it a time, it's sort of like I think I've always kind of knew that
Mhm.
that there's a lot of nuances and complexities in regards to Cambodian politics, especially
Well,
during that era.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember in my middle school days, all I knew was Angkor, and
Mhm,
the Khmer Rouge genocide. I didn't really know, the details behind it, and I was ashamed to be Cambodian because I didn't understand the history before what happened to our
mhm,
parents. So now
mhm.
that I'm more aware, I just have so much, I feel a lot of pain and a lot of um, guilt for feeling that way and for
Mhm.
not really understanding what my parents went through as well. But good for you for taking it upon yourself to learn more about our history in detail. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing what you know with the rest of the world too.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an obligation for of because like we're in this like recovery mode, recovery
Hmm.
era of our culture. So it's like whatever you could do to pay it forward, like we have to do it. Especially like within Khmer culture, there's like this thing where like the relationship between a master and a student, the master only provides 90% information to the student and withholds 10% information because he doesn't want the student to become better
Masters.
than
Yeah.
him.
Hmm.
So, and then over time, that 10% compounds, right? The
Hmm.
10% of information compounds over time, and eventually information like is lost. Like there's
Hmm.
nothing like what 90% of 90% of what is actually being shared, right? When you're withholding 10% over generations. So I think it's an obligation for Khmer people to kind of to pay it forward, to teach it forward, to share whatever information that they can have. It doesn't have to be any on a grand scale, like in a in a documentary or anything like that, but just anything like a little small, just some small gestures count too. So
Absolutely. Okay, so you were
yeah,
born and raised in Long Beach on social assistance. Who did you look up to for inspiration? Because it sounded like you were you were on the right path. Did you, were your friends, were they sources of inspiration? Like were older people in the community sources of inspiration? It sounds like definitely your parents were.
yeah. I would say my uncle, my aunt, and my uncle in law. So
Mm.
um, I remember I remember they came from like they went to school. They and they went to university, received their bachelor's degrees. And I remember back in like the late '90s, early 2000s, they bought this really nice home over in, like as they were getting married. They bought this really nice home, and I remember we used to go there every weekend. This was when I was in middle school. Um, we used to go there every weekend. I'm like, oh man, this life is nuts. It was in the suburb. They had a pool, they had a community pool within the neighborhood, and like I remember I used to like ride my rollerblades and all that, and it just kind of gave me a glimpse of like a different life. Like we used to go there every weekend, and we would stay there until like Monday when school started. We were like we'll wake up at 5 a.m. because like they lived far, like they lived in like this, which is like it's a good like 50, 60 miles away from Long Beach,
Oh.
and like so we used to get up at 5 a.m. and they would they'll take me. We'll wake up at 5 a.m. because they work in Long Beach too. So they were like they will drive all like, they'll drive all the way from Corona to Long Beach, and that was my source of inspiration. So like they kind of showed me a life that I could have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because worse circumstances than I did because they actually were survivors of the Khmer Rouge. So it's like for me like that was like oh yeah if they could do it I could do it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Gave me a lot of like self belief because I do have like a strong sense of self belief. Like I'm pretty confident in myself. Like if I put something on my mind, I'm pretty positive I can do it. And if I can't do it, I'll probably figure out to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of instilled that in me. And then also my uncle in law, who is who's not even my blood uncle, he taught me a lot about like integrity. You know what I mean? Like how to conduct myself in business. Like he's a great mentor of mine. Like if I ever have questions like any political things I navigate at work, he helps me navigate that. So that's a great resources that I have that like I consider him a dad. So yeah. Even though he's not even my
Oh,
blood uncle, he's my uncle in law.
that's awesome that you were able to see people achieve their dreams despite coming from circumstances that relatively are
Right.
less advantaged than you were. I wanted to touch on Long Beach. Like I think most of the Khmer Voices audience knows what Long Beach was like in the 80s and 90s. It is the home to the largest Cambodian population outside of Cambodia, I believe. It is the largest Cambodian population in the US, but I'm not sure about outside Cambodia. Could you give some context as to what life was like in Long Beach in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s?
Sure. So Long Beach is the largest diaspora in the world. So, and I think these, but then I'm not. They need to redo the census because like a lot of us have been moving out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But growing up, to answer your question, growing up in Long Beach during the 80s and the 90s, it kind of felt like there's like a strong sense of community. I think one of the things I've learned in my communications with other Khmer folks from around the world who live in like aren't concentrated Cambodian people, there's like that, like there's like the questioning of your identity, whether or not you feel Khmer enough, and just like just things that happen, right? Because you don't have your community around you. For us, like we're very strong. We have a very strong stance in who we are as Khmer people. I think you could go to any store, any restaurant, any jewelry shop, any whatever, you're bound to run into like, somebody you're connected to in some way. I mean, I run into my mom's friends and my dad's friends all the time. They always ask me how I'm doing and how my mom is doing, how my dad's doing, how my grandma's doing. And then, people you grew up with too, like, um, it is like a strong sense of community. It's actually something that I really, really do not take for granted, especially after like, speaking to more Khmer folks.
Mm-hmm.
Beach, I realize that I have a privilege, having grown up in Long Beach, that, I had to like, that I had to like recognize. So for me, it's like, it was great because like Cambodian New Year, like pretty much the entire month of April, the entire city shuts down. The entire city just celebrates Cambodian New Year. You could do something. There's like something for everybody. Like if you want to do like, the dinner parties with the old folks, you could go to like, Hat Hien. And you want to like, from my generation, we just like to really just like to hang out. We go to a brewery. We shut down a brewery and be a Khmer New Year party. And then there'll be cultural shows, right? Like, like Cambodia Student Society at Cal State Long Beach will be holding a cultural show. And then obviously the parade. So it's like every weekend there's always something happening during Khmer New Year or in the month of April. And it's like it really feels like when you drive to the city in the month of April, it's like, oh, there's a New Year party. Oh, there's a Cambodian New Year party. And that's not to mention like the people who actually throw Cambodian New Year parties themselves and just invite their friends and family. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, the whole city
so
is,
yeah, the whole city is crazy,
yeah,
but it's
from a small
awesome,
scale to like the large scale on the streets. Yeah, I
right?
definitely admire. I definitely envy that because we didn't have that sort of environment growing up. Like we did congregate at Bon and Watts and stuff, but
Hmm.
we never celebrated at the level that Long Beach did. And eventually, I want to get there in Canada. Here, we don't. Our population's not as big as yours, but doesn't mean that we can't make that happen. We do have a lot of
Right? Yeah.
allies. I actually wanted to mention something. So when you're talking about Long Beach, that sense of community and how I wish that we had that. So that's the positive thing about it. One of my friends mentioned like, oh, I feel bad sometimes for Cambodians that ended up in Long Beach because it was such a rough part of, the world to be in. How did you, because a lot of people did get involved in gangs. So how did you stay out of that?
Um. So my dad was actually a gang member.
Oh, wow.
Um.
Okay.
And that prevented me from joining. Um.
Mm.
Close to it, I remember one of his best friends. I won't say where, but one of his best friends had the tattoo, get the gang tattooed on his arm, and I asked like, oh, what does that mean? He's like,
Mm.
oh, it means anyways. But I remember like yeah, growing up, I was like I was my dad wasn't active, like he wasn't like really deep into it, but he was from it, right? And I was exposed to it at a young age,
Mm.
and like there are certain even though I was like, I credit my dad for a lot of things, but I also like there's a lot of things that my dad has done or is embodies that like I don't agree with. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think I just didn't gravitate towards it. But my mom also too. I have to credit my mom. She made sure I was enrolled in like schools where like the gay population wasn't heavy. She was very active in that. She didn't let me go out until like senior year of high school.
What? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, that's unheard of for a boy.
yeah,
Anyways, I know I can understand like girls, I was like that with my mom was like that with me. Now, I shouldn't just say my mom. I'm sure my dad had a
yeah.
strong say in it as well, but my parents, they were very strict with me. So I'm surprised to hear that your mom did that to you. Wow, good for her.
I grew, I I grew up in a matriarchal family because like so my mom and my dad they separated, and then
Mm,
when my dad was no longer living with us, it's pretty much my mom ran the show, right? And then on my mom's side, it was just all aunts and one grandma. Like my grandfather he didn't make it past the food. So it's like I just grew up around like women who led the family,
mm.
uh, and then also too, like I'm the oldest of my generation and the oldest boy. So it's like they
How many
kind of like
siblings do you
they
have?
I have one little sister, but I have like a bunch of little cousins who I consider my siblings,
Okay.
and they all call me older brother.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so like I kind of grew up like instilled in me like you're the oldest, you need to act like it, and and also too I see my grandma because my grandma's the oldest in her generation, so like that makes me double oldest, 'cause, you know in the family, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, is and like she was like responsible for like when she came to this country, she was responsible for like taking care not only of her like her children but also her siblings.
Wow.
And yeah, so she's like and she helped with them a lot financially. And I think for me I grew up and I saw that. And I when my mom and my grandma and my aunts would say you're the oldest, act like it. That's what I saw was what my grandma was doing. You know what I mean? And my mom's also the oldest too. So it's like, just like more like it's just like, I kind of respect the I kind of respect the hierarchy within my family,
Mm-hmm.
and then also she, I think she wanted to like she was looking out for my safety first of all because she dated a gang member, so she knew what that could mean. So that's why she's you're not going out in the streets, you're gonna be like your dad type of thing.
Mm,
At the same time, she was like they really instilled in me like I have to like you have to be the one to kind of like do like basically like me and your grandma have done all that we can within in this country. You're next up, basically.
mm-hmm.
So it's the best way I could put it.
So when you got into college, how excited were they?
It was expected because I'm not the first person in my family to go to college.
Okay. Right. Your aunts and uncles that bought the house.
Yeah,
Did they go to college?
yeah, they went to
Sorry, I
college. Yeah, they
forgot.
went to college.
Okay.
Yeah, but so they were. I mean, they were. I think they kind of like they expected it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know because actually I was like a very in high school. I kind of like didn't really try.
Mm,
And I was just like, I didn't really agree with like how public schools in America how they were operating because
mm-hmm.
a lot of like scores and all that, and like it just didn't really encourage any sort of like critical thinking or anything like that. So
It's all
I just
memorization.
it's all memorization, right? So I kind of just I did what I had to do to kind of like to graduate, but I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't really like I didn't enjoy it. So I went to college. I started taking it more seriously. So my family they just wanted to make sure that I chose a career that was like, that was that was going to like, be fruitful, I guess you could say. So yeah.
And so I think you said to me in a message once that you studied English. Did you know
Mhm.
that you were going to get into marketing while you were in college?
No, no, yeah. So
So
that's
tell me
actually
about that.
interesting. Yeah. So I started going my degree when I went to college was computer science. I wanted to become a computer engineer basically, like, to do development and coding. I took the engineering 101 class. I hated it. I was like, okay, I'm more creative
Uh-huh.
than I am. So I switched up and I went to English education. So my family's actually my mom and my aunts, they're all teachers. So like my family. So I wanted like for a long time I wanted to become a college professor. I wanted to teach English. I wanted to teach literacy theory, like what it means to be literate, things like that. Um, so that was like a goal of mine. However, when I graduated the Great and teachers were being furloughed at that time, and nobody was hiring teachers. I was like,
Mm,
I can't. I gotta be able to navigate this. So what I did was I took up an internship doing copywriting for like some website that sold
mm-hmm.
like concert tickets, and I just started doing copywriting, and that's how I got into marketing. And
Oh,
I
very
think I had to,
cool.
yeah. So it kind of just like happened. I got
Mm,
in through copywriting, and then eventually I built my career from there. But I think the biggest thing was like the biggest thing I had to do was like I had to like have foresight one have foresight, two have the courage to to pivot, which I did, and then three learn how to navigate the pivot. I guess is the best way I could put it.
yeah.
So
So how did you
you
get mhm. Sorry, keep
I said
going.
no, that was at a high level.
So how did you start from copywriting into a more senior role now? Could you give me your career trajectory?
Yeah, sure. So I was a copywriting intern and at this company, and it was like a small company. It's very small. I expressed to them like, hey, I'm interested in being hired full time if there are any opportunities available. Then my boss at the time said, yes, we might have an email marketing coordinator position at a part-time level if you're interested. I was like, yes, please. I was basically trying to secure a job because I knew that if I didn't get a job, it's going to be hard for me to look for one post college, especially with
Mm-hmm.
English education. So I got hired on as an email marketing coordinator. I got paid $14 an hour, working 20 hours a week. I was I was struggling, and I was living by myself. I was struggling.
What? Were you
Yeah.
with
So
your
when I
wife yet at that point?
yes,
Okay, so
yeah,
both of you
yeah,
were, but you weren't
yeah. We're
living with her.
no, 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 no. It was just I was living alone with me and my sister.
Mm.
So yeah, it was hard. It was hard. Now I'm like thinking about like that time. I hated it in terms of like basically all my paycheck went to rent.
Right.
And I remember having to borrow money from from people just trying to like stay afloat.
Yeah.
Um so I was there for about a year, and at that point I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. I need something more. So I went to work at a court reporting firm. And they offered me a role at $15 an hour, but full time. Okay, well, it's better than $14 an hour at 20 hours a week. So I went there, and it was like I considered that court reporting time. I worked there for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
I was like sort of a just trying to keep the lights on in my home until I get back into marketing,
What
which
does
is
a
like
court
will always be.
reporter do?
They do topography or
Okay.
the steno
Um,
whatever. I don't
yeah.
know.
Oh, so
They type like
they
anytime I
they
was a
just type
stenographer
whatever
for
was said?
yeah, pretty much in
Oh,
like courtrooms and
okay.
depositions. Yeah, but my role was to our clients were lawyers and attorneys, so we would schedule and we will assign court reporters to any of their trials or their depositions, and then my role was to do the scheduling.
Mm.
So I hated it. But I needed it because at the very like it didn't pay a lot by any means, but I just needed something a little more stable.
Uh-huh.
So for 2 years, and then an opportunity came up to work at a small agency in Long Beach, at a $16 an hour.
How did you hear
And I
about
was
that?
I just applied. I think there
Okay.
was a moment toward my time at the court reporting place
Uh-huh.
where like I really did not like working there. So I was like I was very motivated to find a place to find something else. So I just kept applying, and then they were one of the places that called back and that offered me a position. So that's how I got back. So working at a small agency, and I was there for like I was doing we our main one of our accounts were the Art Institute. Have you heard of them?
Mm. Like
They're
from
like
New
a
York City?
no, they're like a for-profit school.
Okay.
They're kind of like the VRI and ITT Tech for creative
Oh, I see.
industries.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we were like I started doing when I first started working there, I started working on printing school applications for them. So like I started like I was at the bottom for like a long time, trying to
You're
trying to claw my way.
grinding.
I
Yeah.
was gr- I was grinding, but like I mentioned earlier, like I had this strong self belief that I was going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, a year and a half. I got laid off. That was the best thing that ever happened to me when I got laid off
Was
because
this in
during
2008? Around 2008? What
2016,
year? Oh, wow.
2016.
Okay. So that's only 10 years ago. I
Yeah,
keep forgetting
yeah.
that you're a lot younger than I am.
Yeah. So like I got laid off, which is the best thing that ever happened to me because like I think that's when like my career truly began because like
Mm-hmm.
I navigated unemployed for like about close to a year on unemployment, and then I ended up getting a job at a bigger agency called Rap. That's where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was back and forth between Rap. But when I got on, I was like a freelancer doing QA. So like just double checking work,
Mm-hmm.
um, copy editing, things like that, functionality testing and all that. So I was there as a contractor. So like my contract was like only maybe like 6 months, but I kind of learned how to like play the game a little bit. The one thing about me is I'm a pretty good politician at work. So like I talk to the right people to like make sure they kind of like understand where I truly am. So I tell them like, hey, I have project management experience because I had my last agency, I was a project coordinator. So I was like, hey, I have project management experience. If there's anything that comes up, please let me know. Then one of the PMs that I talked to, one of the project managers that I talked to, was on his way out, and he knew about that, and he threw my name in the ring. And then one of the VPs came up to me and said, "Hey, I heard that you're a project manager. So and so is leaving. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Yes." He said, "Okay, it'll be a freelancer position. It'll be contract to start, but we can like help you get started." So they moved me over to as a project manager once my contract as QA was up, and I became a contractor project manager. And at that point, like I I became really good at the job, and they started giving me more complex projects,
Mm-hmm.
and I started making relationships with the right people and establishing myself. I eventually asked them, started negotiating, for a full time position. And I got the full time position, and that's how I really started my project management career within marketing. So it's quite a journey in terms of like just how getting to like the beginning of my what I call my real career. But I always had that strong self belief that I was going to figure it out.
Yeah,
So
I remember in the post that prompted me to message you, you mentioned
mhm,
that it was a really low time in your life at one point. How
yeah.
did you, where did you find like the strength to get through that? I know that you said you always had this belief, but how did you maintain that belief during such a low time in your life when you're, working 14 for $14 an hour, only $20 a week, and then switching to a full-time role that didn't pay that much more and barely covered the bills?
hmm
How did you
Um,
manage to just keep telling yourself that? Did you have your, I guess it was your girlfriend at that time. Did you have your girlfriend, encouraging you to keep at it? Your grandmother or your mom? Like, how did you have someone to keep you afloat mentally and emotionally?
No, not really.
Mm.
I felt like during that time period, I felt like I was a burden to a lot of people because I kept, I needed some financial assistance, and I remember my mom was like always saying like you need to learn how to save your money, you know. So
You can't really
yeah,
save when you're only making $14 an hour.
exactly. So unfortunately, I had to like find it within myself. But also, it's like I think where it came from, the source of inspiration to keep going, to remain resilient, and to persevere, came from the fact that my family survived the genocide, and that's all I kept telling myself. Your family survived the worst, like worse. You can do it. Like it's literally in your DNA to get through this. You're like it's literally in your DNA to like be resilient, and I think I just kept reminding myself that, and also too, I felt like if I didn't try and like figure this out and try to get out of this hole, it'll be I'll be doing a disservice to like all of my family members who survived the Khmer Rouge. You know what I mean? And like I'd be like just like it'd be all your sacrifices will be for naught. Um, so I think that's sort of like I think it's just the realization of my family's history is what motivated me to keep going.
Mm. So, what exactly do you do now? Your day job?
So I am an associate director of program management, and I'm currently on my way to a promotion of director of operations and change
Oh,
management.
amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I admire that. They say that like connections will help you get a job, your network will help you get a job. But I admire that you were just grinding and you made it happen. You put it out there for the world to know that, hey, I want better. I can do better. I have the abilities. And here you are. Congratulations.
Thank you, Vaughn. I
What
appreciate
was
it.
what did you want for the young people to take away from that post that you made about your career progress?
I think I kind of just wanted them to like I wanted to instill some of the self belief that I had in myself and have them have that same sort of like self belief because I do know there's a lot of younger Khmer folks who follow me, and I
Mm-hmm.
do talk to them on the side. I try my best to do what I can to mentor them with the capacity that I have. And I know they're like a lot of them are like who just finished college and they're like learning how to like enter the workforce, and they're going through their own quarter life crisis similar to what I went through during my career, right? And I just wanted to kind of like let them know like um it's like like dude, even though you might see me and you might look up to me, that I was working for after college. I was working for $14 an hour at 20 hours a week. Like it's gonna suck, and you have to learn. You have to like be okay with the suck. Like you have to okay with things sucking. You know what I mean? Because um, reminding yourself that you are a descendant of survivors. Like your parents, your family have survived like some of the one of the most inhumane things that ever happened within this entire world. So it's like it's in you to to figure it out, to find a way to like survive, because essentially navigating your career is a way to learn how to survive, right? Because you have to like you need to pay the bills, you need to pay your housing, you need to feed yourself, right? um so that's kind of like what I want them to take away from it. It's just like it's going to suck, but you keep at it and you keep believing yourself, you'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Khmer Renaissance,
Sure.
the amazing Instagram that you created. So, with your conversation with Chad, you mentioned that every time someone asks why or how you started Khmer Renaissance, the answer changes. And the answer that you gave him at the time was it was an homage to your parents. So
Right.
I'm asking you this now. What is your answer today? Why and how did you start Khmer Renaissance?
Let's see. I haven't thought about this question in a while. It's been a while since somebody asked me this question. I think right now, if I were to like my answer today, it'll be like feel like it's an obligation to like, an obligation to use the skills that I've developed over the years within my career to like, show our community and our people what proper branding and proper marketing should be. And also too, like how to conduct yourselves as professionals. You know what I mean? Um, so I've always had this like I've always growing up. My parents have always instilled into me a lot of knowledge of what it means to be Khmer, and I've done a lot of independent things on my own to learn about our history and what it means to be Khmer, right? And I developed my own personal identity as a Khmer person. Um, so it's like I want to be able to pay it forward, and I want to be able to create a space on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
for but I also want to do it in a way that's personal to me because like the way because like I care a lot about like being a marketer. I care a lot about like branding and aesthetics and messaging, narratives and all that, um and doing things the right way. I'm very I'm very particular and stubborn in terms of like my execution and like my messaging. I won't post anything. It has to really resonate with me, and it also has to like resonate with my messaging because I have a like I have like core messaging pillars and all that I stick by, and like if it doesn't align with that, I'm not going to just post it. Which is why I do a lot of the things I do is like free because I get to be in control. I don't
Mm-hmm.
ask for any money to influence my page financially, so that's also very intentional. So I'm going on a tangent. I'm kind of giving you a runaround. I'm not really answering the question directly, but I think it's like I just wanted to be able to like contribute to the the Khmer space in my own way. I always felt like I was going to find a way to contribute to our culture.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of like felt that way. So this is kind of like my way of doing it, I
Well,
guess,
yeah, your
and
posts.
yeah,
Sorry, and doing it. Sorry.
doing it in a way that's true to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the only one to say this to you. I'm sure that your posts are completely impactful, each and every one, and I could see your intention behind each post that you put online. When did Khmer Renaissance start?
Um, May 18th, 2021.
And how did you get the name Khmer Renaissance? How did you come up with that?
I didn't come up. Well, I always felt like we were in a Khmer Renaissance. I think I just kind of started like observing our people and our culture. I just realized, oh wow, we're kind of like in a Renaissance right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like kind of like just reclaiming their identities and like they're like elevating the culture and elevating our art in a way that's very like compelling. Um, so I kind of just like, oh man, we're in a Renaissance. Like we're in a Khmer Renaissance. So as I started going into it, I realized a lot of other people were saying Khmer Renaissance too. So it's sort of like this unspoken word, or term, I guess you can say, that a lot of people within the community were using.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of just adopted it and I put it into a page. And actually, the person who really, the person who I consider to actually start the word Khmer, the term Khmer Renaissance is Bong Sok Fasal, the man who created Clap Your Hands,
Yes.
um,
Okay.
the label. He was actually the first one to actually say Khmer Renaissance back in like 2010, I believe. So
Do you know him?
he originated. I know him. Yeah, it's funny actually. When I was in Vietnam last year, I actually ran into him. I was like, oh, hey, because we knew each other online. We really never met in person because he lives in Cambodia.
Uh
And I
huh.
met him like, oh, Bong Basal. He's like, Sotheara. I was like, oh, okay. And it was kind of nice.
Oh, like you guys weren't planning to meet. You just saw him on the streets in Vietnam, and
Yeah,
you're like, "Oh, hey, I know you."
yeah. Like, oh, we follow each other online. He's like, oh yeah, Bong. So he introduced me to his girlfriend. He started like talking about Khmer Renaissance. I was like, oh, okay, he's a fan. He actually that was actually very humbling. I was like, "Fuck you," because I look up to him because like I consider him like a pioneer in like original music in Cambodia. Like, I consider him an inspiration and a muse. So
Uh-huh.
to kind of
Uh-huh.
hear my Renaissance the page to his girlfriend was like very humbling. It was a very humbling thing. Yeah,
How has the page evolved since you started in 2021?
I think it's kind of gone in many different ways. In the beginning, it's like a lot of like branding, a lot of like I did a lot of designs and like just sort of like overlay designing things, But now I'm like, I'm a little more raw in terms of like what I post. I don't do as
Mm-hmm.
much design. I have like key branding frameworks that I use and like font typefaces that I stick to. But for the most part, I kind of let the work that I show speak for itself. Um, so now in the beginning, I was really focused on like trying to reverse the Khmer mentality, the Khmer consciousness of like, we are our own worst enemies, and we have to recognize that we bring each other down, we talk shit about each other, we're crabs in a bucket, etc., etc., etc. We've gone through so many traumatic things, and we need to like address our trauma. That was like the beginning. Now I feel like I'm really more focused on like how can we move forward. I'm really more focused on like using our past to like propel us into the future. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to like just be an archive page where we just talk about the past and only the past. I want to relate the past to be a source of a way for us to move forward. You know what I mean? So I think that's the best way I can do it. I don't want to be like a command news site. That's not who I am. I'll share
Mm-hmm.
news relevant to the messaging
Mm-hmm.
of the, but for the most part, I try to like, I'm very specific on what I choose to post. So
So I noticed that you also have an Instagram called Donut Creative. Is
mhm.
that your own agency?
I think it was like an idea. I would like for it to be an agency sometime, okay? But right now it's kind of like it hasn't really evolved. It hasn't really evolved. Now I feel like it's kind of like my creative arm where like whenever I do like merchandise or like I use the donut shop creative name to kind of like to do merchandise and stuff like that. So, but initially it was meant to be um like a multidisciplinary creative and production agency to
Mm-hmm.
assist my community like proper marketing and things like that. But I truthfully I have not been able to find a space or capacity to kind of like evolve it as much as I want to. So it's kind of like this outlier right now, I guess you could say.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of make the connection between what you're doing in your day job and Khmer Renaissance and how you want to use those avenues to uplift the community and provide opportunities for for the community. Can you tell me like what you're envisioning? Like what exactly do you want to do in the next 5 years with your day job and Khmer Renaissance? And if those two, it, you're using your day job skills to um, to make Khmer Renaissance a success, right? Like you're a marketer, and Khmer Renaissance is it's a an influencer account, and I could see like your branding standards there, your color profile, and your typeface. It's all very consistent, and this sort of post, like it's very emotionally driven as well. Like you could be sharing news, but there's always like an emotional element to it, which I absolutely love. Right, like that's what makes you different. It's not just like, hey, this happened, but you provide context to it so that people can better understand it and retain it because there's an emotional aspect to it. How are you bringing like your day job and Khmer Renaissance together to help the community aside from, sharing these posts on Khmer Renaissance? Like, what do you want to do with that? Because I know you want to do something.
Yeah. So I currently have plans to I currently have plans to see if I could create jobs, marketing jobs in Cambodia. So, given that I've kind of like walked up the ladder at my agency, and we're owned under Omnicom. Have you heard of
Hmm.
Omnicom?
Yep.
So like we're pretty much like now like
International.
with the recent acquisition of IPG, like we're all Omnicom at this point. Like I'm no longer a rap employee. I'm more of an Omnicom employee.
Mm.
So yeah, like I kind of like I have like I talk to people within the agency who have influence, and also I have a connection who lives of a person who lives in Cambodia. He was the former global chief data officer for our company, but he resigned to go live in Cambodia. He's a Korean man, and he's currently developing a university to try and develop like intellectual labor in Cambodia. So, and me and him, we still keep in touch. And he was in the States recently, probably like about 2 weeks ago. We were at our holiday party, and me and him
Uh-huh.
were like bouncing 2 hours. And I've always sort of like been like, because when I was in Cambodia last year, all I think about like, I could probably create outsourcing jobs over here. So I brought up that idea to him. He's like, we could probably do that. He like we could train the Cambodian people to like to like work at like Martech. Like we might be able to do something like that because he still talks to like our CEO. He still talks to like our global chief technical officer and all that, and he has really great relationships with them. And I think we could probably do it, but it has to like we have to like formulate a plan, and we also have to develop a use case, right? Where like they have to see whether or not it's actually even viable
Mm-hmm.
financially, and seeing if it's actually worth pursuing. So that's what I would like to do. I think I could do it. Like I mentioned to you before, I have a strong sense of self belief,
Uh-huh.
and given the connections, I think I can do it.
I think you
Uh,
can. That's exciting.
Yeah. And I think to me, that's like the true impact. So, I was talking about this with my wife the other day. I was like, man, I love like the work I do on Khmer Renaissance is super fulfilling. But if I could actually create jobs and create an industry,
Mm-hmm.
that's changing for people,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Because
Mm-hmm.
like when I like Cambodian brands and companies, I do simple things. And you work in marketing too, so you understand like the standard practices of like we kick something off, we have a brief developed, right? It's a very simple thing. You bring a brief to some of these Cambodian companies, they look at it like it's a foreign document. They don't know what a brief is. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's a lot. They have a long way to go, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, and also too, the Cambodian companies, they have this horrible business practice where like they'll like put an RFP for like a rebrand
Mm.
and the work to be free.
They want
And
they want the artist to work for free or the agency to work for
yeah,
free.
yeah.
Hmm. What for
And I'm
exposure? Is
talking about
that their sell?
yeah, portfolio, whatever. And you and I we both work in marketing. Like, no, that's not
Yeah.
free work. We're talking like a rebrand. That's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know what I mean? Potentially, right? Like that's a lot
Yeah.
of money.
Are
Uh,
they just hoping like young graduates would take that?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess
Okay.
so. Yeah. And I'm talking about like big companies. I'm talking about like Cambodian Airways.
Hmm.
They looked at an RP that they put out that they were asking for like free work, free rebrand because they were trying to redo their logo or whatever. I'm like, what
Wow.
the heck? So me by me saying this, like I had these aspirations, I have these dreams of like creating an industry in Cambodia, but I also understand like some of the limitations and the limitations that I had to like navigate, getting it out of their minds that this work is not free. Like you kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to respect the creative professionals who are doing your job, who doing your work and all that. So yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I like. I hope to create opportunities because if I do that, then that'll help grow the middle class in Cambodia. And that's like what I really that's what I think we all want. We want the middle class in Cambodia to grow. So
Mm-hmm. Did you speak Khmer growing up?
a little bit. I'm not
Yeah.
that great though.
Do you speak Khmer to your daughter?
Yeah, I try. Yeah,
Yeah. Do you
yeah,
want her to learn Khmer as well?
yeah. I would love her to learn Khmer. I think
Uh-huh.
so my mother-in-law pretty much is staying with us right now.
Uh-huh.
And she all she does is speak Khmer. So
Uh-huh. That's perfect.
there's yeah, Audrey's gonna learn Khmer, and I
Uh,
I pretty much speak Khmer to my mother-in-law. I
mm-hmm.
speak like a child. I try my best to speak Khmer, and I talk
Mm-hmm.
Khmer to. I mean, that's a goal, but we'll see how. It always like I feel like because I remember my mom told me that when I was little, I spoke perfect Khmer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hopeful that doesn't happen for Audrey, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to use it. Otherwise, you'll lose it,
Right.
right? I don't speak Khmer
Right.
myself to my children, and they don't know any. I mean, they have like maybe their vocabulary is 5 or 6 words, but that's about it. But that's one of my dreams to learn the Khmer language again and speak
Mhm.
with more confidence and really understand the news in Khmer because I can't, it just goes over
Oh,
my head.
dude, when I was in Cambodia last year, like, we got picked up by our Grab driver in Siem Reap. And like the airport, the drive from the airport, the Siem Reap airport to Siem Reap is like about an hour. It's pretty far.
Mm.
So like when we were Khmer, he starts talking to us in Khmer, and I was like, oh my god, they use big words like,
Right?
and I'm all like, even like my wife speaks, even she had like a hard time like trying to understand. I'm like, "Oh, what did he say?" But I will say during my time in Cambodia, all we did was speak Khmer, and I remember like, okay, I'm actually like, my Khmer's coming back.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was speaking pretty good. I just
Mhm.
needed like a couple of Cambodia in country.
Okay, we should be wrapping up soon, but I wanted to ask you just maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Um,
Sure.
who do you look up to now? Do you have anyone that you that really inspires you to keep doing what you're doing and to do better? Like I think a lot of people look up to you. I am one of them. I'm like this man is amazing. Um, but who do you look up to? Is there someone that you admire or
Oh man,
people?
people. I think Barack Obama is like one of my all-time role models. I think I model my writing after him. So
Mm.
I think is I like my writing is kind of like Barack Obama esque. Like like that was like a book that changed my life. So, but that's kind of like that's not really like community, but just more like in general, like Barack Obama is just somebody I really like. I really admire.
Mm.
Um, I guess I really look up to like the younger Khmer people, especially those in Cambodia. Like I just see some of the things that they do. Like, oh man, you guys are amazing. Like you guys you guys are so creative and you guys are really thinking about our culture in a very compelling way, and you guys are so smart, and I kind of feel like anytime I work with like younger Khmer folks, the amount of like care and professionalism that they have is just like mind blown, because when I work between us, I always have reservations when I work with like um older members of the community, because of the trauma that
Mm-hmm.
that's associated. And when I work with younger Khmer folks, it's like I feel like there's a sense of professionalism, there's a sense of respect of people's time, like it's like night and day. So when I work with younger Khmer folks, like I feel like I'm in like I feel like I'm in a professional setting, which I really really appreciate.
Mm.
Um, so for me, like seeing how they're like pretty much like how they're operating gives me hope, because that's what I really want out of our communities. Like we need to learn how to be professional, and we need to learn how to conduct ourselves in business. You know what I mean? It can't just be like you call me out of the blue and I have an idea. Can we get it going
I
right
get
now?
it.
Like,
Yeah.
whoa, you know what I mean? Like that's not how I operate. I come from corporate. Like, kickoffs and discoveries happen over time. You know what I mean? And I honestly expect that, That's what those are my expectations. And when I work with young client folks, like they have that level of respect. Like sometimes like when they want to pitch me something, they have like a whole PowerPoint deck ready to go. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. And you're a college student. Oh my God. I love
Well,
you.
they probably see the caliber of your work. They're like, I gotta come prepared.
Yeah, but it's not even about that. It's just like I feel like if you want to be respected, you're a professional. You want to be respected in the professional world, you have to carry yourself with, with that level of aptitude, right?
Hmm.
Um, and for me, like when I see it actually happening in action, that just inspires me. So that kind of keeps me going, right? Because I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, they're actually like, the younger Khmer folks, they can actually make a change. Like I got to keep going because they're going. You know what I mean? So yeah, I
Hmm.
get that. Those are the people who inspire me. Young Khmer students and all that. So
I think I know the answer to my next question already, but I just want to make sure you don't have a different one. While you're going through that dark period in the beginning of your career, what advice would you give to yourself back then?
The advice, I remember you asking me this question in an email and I was thinking about it. And I still don't have an answer. But I'll wing it. I mean, the advice I will give is like, even though I have like strong stuff, I have like a lot of moments in my life where like I kind of like not necessarily doubt myself, but I feel tired. You know what I mean? Um, I feel like I can't do this anymore. Like I've been going at 150 miles per hour for my entire life. I'm tired. I'm tired. I just really don't want to do this anymore. So I think what I would tell myself, knowing that I have been going 150 miles per hour in my life, and I still go 150 miles per hour in my daily life, is I would tell myself to like, it's okay to slow down and it's okay to take a break. You're going to get there eventually. The timing is going to happen the way it's going to happen. So that's the advice I would give myself because, you know, I wouldn't say keep going because I'm pretty self motivated and I know I will keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But these advice I need to tell myself. Sometimes I need to slow down and I need to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know
yeah,
when you keep going, it's like you're still working in survival mode
yeah,
when it's
correct.
not necessary.
Yeah,
You have
exactly, right?
cushion for yourself. You can slow down.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to recognize that, like, you got to recognize that, like, we made it. you
Yeah.
know, it's like, what else is there? What else is there to achieve? Everything's supplementary at this point. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so last question. What are one or two things that you want listeners to take away from what you shared today?
The first thing I always tell everybody, and especially when I give like graduation keynotes, I always tell people that like your family has walked through landmines um, to get to where you are today, and that you're a descendant of survivors, and just to be able to recognize that you are a descendant of survivors, and understand that like if your family can survive the worst atrocities in mankind, you could get through your dark period in life. So that's like the first piece of advice I always give to people. And then the second one is like, I think people need to get comfortable with failure. I think it's such a cliche thing to say, especially in the motivational content core that's like, floating around, you know, navigate failure, like toxic alpha male type of thing, But it is true, like in some capacity, like you're learning how to fail. I think that's the one thing. I think that's a skill that a lot of people should learn, and it's a skill that I want to teach my daughters. Like learning how to fail. You gotta learn that failure is eventually going to happen. But how do you navigate it? How do you learn from the failures? Right? You know, I think that's super important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It builds resilience too
It
in a
builds
life
resilience.
of comfort. As amazing as Khmer Renaissance is, I know we have yet to see the best that Sotheara has to offer. I am excited to see him make an even stronger impact for us. If you're not following Khmer Renaissance on Instagram, go do it now. I don't know what you're waiting for. But if you're driving, obviously, just wait until your car is parked. The link is in the show notes. Please share this episode with someone you think would love it. Akon Chran for listening to Khmer Voices. We'll be back in a couple weeks.